Hi, everyone. Welcome to our very first live event interview with Dayle Diffey. Super excited to have her on here. She's going to talk about her journey into a wellness program that she's been building for the last several years. Dayle, hi, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
We're so excited to have you. So I'm sure everybody is wondering, give us a little bit about your background, and then tell us kind of how you made the shift in the journey into your own wellness program.
So, I have been in community retail for 30 years. Graduated from Ole Miss in 1995, and did a little bit of PRN here and there, like in community hospital, small community hospital setting. But then always kind of have done PRN in retail too. And then started a consulting practice, which is another whole story for PGX. And then a friend of mine introduced me to a wellness partnership, and that was a couple of years ago. And that's what I've been doing since, and sort of hung my hat up on PGX when the wellness business sort of took off. So it was a good transition.
All right, that sounds amazing. So let's talk about when you went to start your PGX business first. Like, what was your mindset? You were a retail pharmacist in your dad's pharmacy, and then you're like, all of a sudden, boom, I want to start my own business, or like, how did that happen?
So I had a my youngest was about to be a senior in high school and was going to be involved in all these activities, and I wanted to be part-time in retail. And by then my dad had sold the store, and I and am still managing it for the current owner. And I'm total transparency. So as far as retail, I rarely ever want to complain about retail. I mean, of course, there's retail complaints, but as far as the setting and the hours and the commute and all the things, we're only open during the week. I'm 4 days a week in retail now, which is full time, but I have like a 3 minute commute. We're there 8:30 to 5:30, so I know all the chain retail mamas are probably like, "Ugh, I can't," But anyway, but retail is retail, and it's you know working with the public and for the public is still the same. So anyway, I wanted to be able to do part-time in retail, but I wanted to have a couple of days off during the week with some flexibility so that I could be off, to do what I wanted to do with her. And so had been on the LinkedIn platform for a while, and then started seeing all these posts about PGX this and that and the other. I didn't know what PGX was. We didn't learn about that. We thought we were cool talking about cytochrome P450 and all that stuff. We had no idea what pharmacogenomics was. And so I started seeing that, and I thought, okay, I don't know what this is, but I'm fixing to start, doing some research and figuring it out. And then have always kind of been intrigued with genetics in general. And so once I figured out what PGX was, I was like, okay, I want to learn how to do that. And saw, some posts on LinkedIn for a course to learn how to set up a consulting practice. Because I mean, all I know is retail, right? I don't know how to do anything else. Certainly didn't know how to set up a consulting practice. And so I thought, this is something that I can probably do part time on my days that I'm off in retail and kind of work it around the things I wanted to do. And so kind of dove in headfirst into that, which is generally how I operate. And so went probably from start to finish, about not finish, but start of that whole process to seeing patients in about 6 weeks. Um,
Wow.
because I just dove in, blew through all the course material as quickly as I could, devour it every night. I would, work all day, come home, dinner, clean the kitchen up, and then get on the computer and start going through all the modules so I could start working through the steps to get it set up. And then took a certification course to learn the science behind it, because there again, I had no idea about that either because I didn't learn it back in the dark ages. And so started doing that, did that for, I guess, about 3 maybe about, yeah, 2.5, 3 years. And in the meantime, my friend introduced me to this opportunity to partner with this wellness company. And so, anyway, Hunk sort of after about, I don't know, 6 months or so in the wellness business, it had kind of taken off, and I really needed more time for it anyway. And it was just sort of a good time to sort of hang my hat up on PGX. And I still test people from time to time, people that know that I do the testing. Um, of course, I'll do a test for them if they want it, but I don't go into the clinic that I was, sort of integrated into to do testing for them anymore. I just replaced it with wellness, which has really let me help a lot more people. Um, Even though I was helping people with PGX, it was limited, of course. And so now I'm able to help a lot more people with like fundamentals of health more so than just, the medication side of it. So,
So you are pretty brave. I would say a lot of people, a lot of pharmacist moms are going to be like terrified, right? To just kind of jump headfirst into something. And especially, I'm sure you had to pay for this course, right? So then it's like,
thousands. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I guess what would you say to the pharmacist mom who is in your shoes, like thinking they want to do something different, just not knowing what that is, and then trusting what's out there?
Um, of course, hindsight is always great, but and spending even more time since then on LinkedIn and just interacting with a lot of other pharmacists, there seems to be sort of a, I don't want to call it a shift, but a thought process that you need another degree or you need another
Yes.
certification or you need, MBA, or you need a master's in health, whatever. And you just don't. Because the thing about it is, and I enjoyed taking that course. I met a ton of people, got a whole, made a whole lot of new connections, learned a new science. And then of course met some phenomenal people along the way once I was doing the testing, but it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
It cost me several $1,000s to take the course to learn how to set up the practice. And then, of course, it cost, to get the certification and to set up all the, jump through all the legal hoops to set up an LLC and just all the things. And do I regret doing it? No. Would I do it right now? Also, no. Because, because the, the bottom line with any of the cash based services, which so many of them are because we're not considered providers in the eyes of Medicare yet.
Mm,
So many things are cash based. I don't have the demographics where I am to support cash based services. And so finding the patient population for most people is the missing link. And
yep.
I even had the patient population because I was integrated into that clinic and they sort of referred their patients in house to me, but even then, everybody's not always willing or able to pay for cash-based services. And so right now, I mean, if that's something that you want to do, go do it. But be very aware that finding the patient base is everybody's missing piece. People that took
Mhm.
the course almost at the same time I did in 2021 are still trying to brand themselves and
Um,
advertise and find a patient base or integrate in a clinic or work for or work with companies that are self-insured for their employee base and or get into a health system and all the things, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. um,
mhm.
I didn't have time to do all that branding and all that advertising and all the things, so it was truly a blessing that I got the patient base of that clinic, but there were still, everybody's not willing or able to pay for a cash based service. And so anything that you do that's cash based, there's that, caveat that you're going to have to go out and they're not necessarily going to come to you.
Mhm.
Because how are they going to know you're offering that service unless you're already in some type of consulting practice or unless you integrate into a clinic that feeds their patients to you? The cash based thing, it's kind of tricky. unless you have the demographics to support it and a way to market yourself to them without spending thousands of dollars on advertising. And then the other side of it, if you were in a situation where you could co-bill for Medicare or, things like that, then you're not going to necessarily be able to dictate your fees. You're going to just take
Oh,
whatever, you're going to split that
yeah.
co-visit billing with the other provider and, get whatever Medicare is offering at the time for that visit. So there's lots of pieces of it. If you're just determined to do something like that, then absolutely go for it. But coming back to the original point of where I started with that whole conversation was you don't need the other certifications. You don't need more letters behind your name. You don't need another degree. You don't need what you have is more than enough to do whatever you need to do. I mean, you may have missed like I did PGX, but you're very well prepared and very well educated to do anything in pharmacy or not. And the other piece I would say, which you may be getting to this in a minute, don't limit yourself to just pharmacy stuff.
I
Um,
love that. Yes. I feel
so
like
there's
there's like a mindset shift we need to make, right? Like, and I'm going to get to
yes.
this here in a minute, but it's like for me, when I graduated 20 years ago, I thought I spent so much time and had so much debt that I needed
Yep.
to go work hard for my degree to earn what I learned, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And use it so that I didn't feel guilty. So now you've gone through school, you've been a pharmacist for years, you invested in this course for PGX, and you, not that it failed, you did a great job. It's just that you kind of felt like you needed something different. Did you
Mm-hmm.
feel, not that you felt like a failure, but it's okay, right, to make a pivot? And like, so how did you just
Absolutely.
say, like, this worked, but it wasn't completely ideal, but I still love the fact that I'm going to do something different. So then you made the
Right.
shift to wellness. So how did that feel for you? Like, why did you, like, after spending the time and money and resources to build your PGX, was it an easy decision for you to then
Yes.
pivot and do something different?
Absolutely. Because like I had done it for about 3 years, like I said, and it had not really increased. And there wasn't a light at the end of the tunnel as far as becoming a provider in the eyes of Medicare, which then all the other insurances would follow suit. um, it wasn't like that was just around the corner that it was going to happen. And I knew that it was going to be an ongoing fight for several more years to do it. Um, and just, the logistics of driving 45 minutes to the clinic and, you schedule out a whole day that you could be doing something else. And then you get there and half your patients have canceled or, just
Yeah.
whatever. It's because it's so unpredictable. Um, and then by the time I sort of was phasing out of that, I guess, like I said, I had been in the wellness space for about 6 months at that point, and it had really taken off. And I needed more time for that. And it was kind of summertime. And so there wasn't ever much testing or anything like that going on in the clinic during the summer. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take the summer off from the clinic and just kind of see what happens, see how it goes. And I did that. And then I never went back. I didn't put myself on their schedule for fall, sessions or whatever. And they, and at the same time, didn't really ask me to. So it was just kind of like I eased out. But like I said, I needed the extra time that I did have off from retail um, for more wellness space things and travel and things like that we were doing. And I had picked back up another day in retail because the scheduling at our store I needed 4 days a week, versus three. So I had added another day back. So I only had the one day to work with during the week. And I thought I've got to give it to where more profitable, able to help more people, more flexible, not having to go off site to somewhere to work. And so it was pretty easy just to pivot um, into the wellness space even more.
And let's talk about the scary thing, like the top three things that people are scared of. One, not knowing what to do. Two,
Mm-hmm.
time, like we don't have enough time. And then
Mm-hmm.
three, the initial investment. So your initial investment for the course was thousands is what you said.
Hmm.
What about the
Hmm.
wellness business? Like, how much did you have to invest then, and when did you get your return?
So for wellness, I should have looked up how much it cost me to take the course for PGX and the certification. It probably was, I'm going to guesstimate $3,500, $4,000 initially.
Wow.
Um, for wellness, I was able to start for $30 because it's like an online franchise. And
Wow.
so I started for $30 and was profitable immediately because as soon as I started, we have sort of a system that we use to get started, and it's social media based. And so, literally, as soon as I started, you know, people started pinging my phone, which was great. And that was the other piece too that was refreshing because I wasn't having to try to find customers. Customers were coming to me, um, and being able to have conversations with people and get them started on their wellness journey and follow them now, of course. But too, we're able to help people feel better. Able to help people with their finances. So it's kind of a two-part thing, and help them get to some root causes of things, which, on the PGX side, even though it was great, it was personalized and more precision-based medicine. It was still all about the medications, and it wasn't necessarily about nutrition or supplements or wellness or how to maybe come off of some medications. It was more just tweaking the ones that you were already on or needed to potentially be on. So the whole space has been super refreshing and super different than what we're used to in retail or pharmacy in general, because we're just not trained adequately, I feel, in wellness. So I'm learning as I go and learning while I'm earning money, which is beautiful.
That is fantastic. I mean, that's incredible that you were able to join this wellness program for $30. You're profitable that very same day. I feel like that is a huge hindrance for a lot of people because they're thinking
Yeah.
like, well, one thing, as you mentioned, right? Like you don't need another certificate, you don't need another degree, you don't need more letters. Like I think pharmacist moms were so used to following procedures and following it by the books and
Hmm.
we're like very detail oriented that we feel like we have to build business plans and create LLCs. And I mean, you can start as a sole proprietor, you can start for $30 and you can
Hmm.
start making extra money,
Right.
when everything's done for you, I assume, in
Yeah.
yours.
Systems in
um
place, which is beautiful. You're
exactly,
not
yeah,
figuring it
like
out as you go. It's like we have sort of a mentor type scenario and then the systems, and it's plug and play. So it's super easy, without having to take courses or spend a lot of money to get started. And I think too, which it is different. It's a different thing. Like I said, I like to think of it as like a online or virtual wellness franchise. And so many people, I think, have boxed themselves in to, they don't necessarily like what they're doing, but they'll only look for other things that are W-2, that
yeah.
if they're going to get a paycheck. And did I stop doing retail when I started doing this? No. Do I want to continue to build this and sort of, backpedal a little bit in retail eventually? Yes. But I'm doing both of them. So I can do this part time. I can still do retail. And I didn't have to totally stop one thing to start another thing. Um, but it's not just switching from one W-2 to another. You know what I mean? It's different. And a lot of people, I think, don't open themselves up to those types of possibilities.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we have to have, or we feel like we have to have permission from somebody to sort of step outside the traditional pharmacy roles. When we graduated, I think you and I talked about this. It was okay, are you going to do hospital or are you going to do retail?
Yeah.
And through the years, we've gotten all these other options like PGX and consulting practices and, clinical roles and industry and all these different things. And we're willing to open up to those sometimes, but we're not necessarily willing to step outside the pharmacy box even though wellness isn't totally outside the pharmacy box, it's definitely outside the traditional pharmacy box that we're used to or that I've been used to in retail because we weren't even really educated in that space, which is terrible, really, because, so many things, if we get our nutrition right and we get our supplements to fill in the gaps where our nutrition isn't adequate, or, we can't eat a whole bushel of greens a day to get the amount of greens we need. So we do have to supplement a lot of times for things like that. But we weren't educated in any of that.
Mhm.
But if we would educate, and am trying to educate more people on that, hopefully they're going to need me less for prescriptions and just more for education, information, that kind of thing. Because even though the almighty Google is out there, a lot of people are not able to process what they find on Google, and they don't know how to interpret it and how to use it or whether it's even valid. Um, and so I would much rather be a source of information and education than just a big bag of medicine, because those people don't feel well. If
Mhm.
they're coming to me for a big old bag of medication every month, they don't feel well. And I would much rather help them feel better and need me less for medication.
Exactly. I'm gonna rename the group, I think, because I have it as side hustle, but it's really not a side hustle. It's really just an extension of our professional value. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's where some mindset is stuck because I feel like I get a lot of this. I'm not good at sales. I'm not a salesperson. But
I'm not either.
you're not selling. Like when someone comes to
Yeah.
the pharmacy countertop and they're like, "Can you look at this rash? Like, what is this?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are
Yeah.
you selling them on something? No, you're
No.
recommending like based on your knowledge. And
Right.
that's exactly what you're doing with your wellness business. You're
Right.
educating them on nutrition, supplements, what their
Right.
body needs. And it just so happens that in that you're making recommendations for products, right?
Right. Right.
But it's not like
Which
salesy, right? Like I doubt
it's
you're like,
no,
buy
because
this.
people are like, they want to feel better and they want the information and they want to know how to do it, because if they could do it on their own, they would have already done it.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is they haven't, or they're buying a bunch of random things hoping that they're going to hit on the right combination of supplements, which may or may not be even good quality supplements, because a lot of
Yeah.
there's no real regulation on supplements, and so unless the company self-regulates their manufacturing processes and testing and all that, you don't really know what what it says you're getting, but you don't really know what you're getting. But people really want that information and they want the help. Now, everybody that's in our space isn't a pharmacist. We've got, nurses and even, people that don't even do anything in the health space. But I do feel like having the knowledge and having um, sort of I don't want to say the respect of the degree, because you don't have to have the degree either, or any type of certification for that matter. But I think people automatically respect and value what I recommend to them. And so it just kind of adds another layer. But I certainly could do it if I wasn't a pharmacist. Would I feel as well equipped to do it? Maybe not. And I would have had a lot more learning to do on the front end, probably. But it certainly can be done. And like I said, we mentor everybody and help everybody get up to speed on all the things too. But I do think that because of the profession, we automatically sort of had that, that validates our
Mhm.
recommendations to people for sure.
So if a pharmacist mom is listening and thinking like, "Oh my gosh, it sounds great, but I'm super overwhelmed." Like how would I even because we already acknowledged we didn't have very much training in the wellness space.
Correct. Yeah.
So how like what would you say to them?
So just, ask some more questions. I'm happy to answer whatever. And just know that, like I said, we always sort of help the next person get started and lock arms with them, help them, you know, know where to find information on specific things. I mean, you already know the information on the vitamins and minerals and supplements and things like that, but there's always sources of information at our fingertips because most of everything that we do comes from apps on our phone. And so it's just everything's literally at our fingertips, and then we just lock arms with, you know, everybody and until they're comfortable finding the information on their own, and then we're still there for a resource, of course, but it's super easy to get started. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. As a matter of fact, it's not overwhelming. And I feel like just sort of starting is the hardest part. And then after that, you kind of see that it's not as overwhelming as you thought it would be, but just giving yourself permission to try something different.
And also you're you have a chief medical officer that like does teachings for you guys and kind of
Yeah,
helps you
he
along the way,
does.
right?
He does all sorts of education for us. We have a medical advisory board, and he's of course the head of that. And then we have several researchers that are on staff too, to as far as product development and quality assurance and things like that. But there's tons and tons of product information out there that is even like in a PDF format that anybody can interpret, anybody can read it. Um, and so we do have all of that. And then we have them sort of overseeing the whole thing to make sure that what we have is good quality, and that we do have the information that we're able to share with the people that we're recommending the products to.
And so we touched on the money aspect of it. We touched on the overwhelming part. What about like time? How much time would you say you devote to your wellness business on the side?
So most of the time, just because, like I said, I'm in retail until 5:30 most days. A lot of times my wellness business starts like right now, like it's 8 o'clock here. And so sometimes I may only have 30 minutes or an hour at night. And then when I do have a day off, I really try to, get a lot of things done when I'm off, of course, but I just kind of work it into pockets of time, maybe a few minutes before work. And then at night, once everything's settled, it doesn't have to control your time. You can control it, and work when you're able to, like while the kids are napping or while the kids are at school, or, just whenever works for you. I do have friends that do it full time, but, I have a really good friend that's a nurse. Her schedule is as crazy as mine. And so she's like me. We do what we can after work or on our day off, and just kind of make it fit us, which is the missing piece from the PGX thing,
Hmm.
because I had to be open for business when the clinic was open for business in order to see the patients. But
Oh
with
yeah.
this, I can answer messages when I have time to. Nothing's urgent. um, and so I can do it in pockets of time, or when I'm off work, just kind of work it around my schedule, which is great. I mean, that's what everybody ultimately wants, right? Is time freedom.
Yes.
And so, even though I'm still 4 days a week right now in retail, I'm growing the wellness business so that, one day this will be my full time, um, or else, PRN in retail at least, because I don't know that I would be able to let all my people go, but
Yeah.
anyway, but for right now, I work it in when I can, which is great. And I've still been able, um, to make really good money. I've been on a bunch of trips, all the things. So it's been a lot of fun.
So who do you think that this path is best for?
I'm sorry that it cut out for just a second. Who would I
I'm
think
so
what?
sorry. Who do you think that this path, like a wellness program like what you've built, who do you think that that's best for?
Anybody that's looking to either make some extra money on the side, or maybe somebody that works part time that just wants something else to do, on some of those days, but doesn't really want to pick up an extra shift. I think anybody who wants the flexibility, um, who wants to be able to control their schedule, especially if it's, somebody that's maybe been off work for a while with a baby, or, has young kids, or, but really any age, somebody that just want something else to do to be able to help more people with the wellness space. If you're interested in wellness and supplements and all that, but have never really been able to take time to dive into it, I think those people for sure. But anybody that wants some extra money or, wants to just be able to contribute something else to their family's finances without having to work shifts outside the home. Because I know a lot of us work PRN, we'll work retail, and I did and still occasionally do for a friend that has a store, but sometimes we'll pick up shifts PRN here and there for extra money or whatever the case is. And I think this is a really good alternative for that extra money without having to take another day away from your family. Because, typically to make extra money, that's what it is picking up PRN shifts somewhere else. And this is a way to do that, but you can still work it around soccer or, whatever, and not have to get a babysitter and take more time away or commute, all the things. That's one of the most beautiful pieces of it is you can work from wherever you want to around your schedule and not have to be away from your family even more.
I love that you had mentioned, that it gives you flexibility and freedom. I feel like there are a lot of kind of our generation of pharmacists who've been out 15, 20, 30, 40 years, and they're
Mm-hmm.
finding that if their store closed or there's not enough shifts or
Mm-hmm.
they're not able to find a job and they're scrambling, right? And they don't know
Yeah,
what to do. So I feel
that's
like this would be an easy option for them it has a low entry fee. You can be
right.
profitable day one. It's a done for you system. It would give them something that they could earn extra income or even place whatever income they
Replacement
had.
income. Yeah,
And give them
yeah,
so that they're not feeling like, what am I going to do with my license? You know?
yeah, yeah. And like I said, being on the LinkedIn platform, if anybody in this group is on LinkedIn, they know too, because there's constantly somebody posting, I'm looking for work.
Yeah.
I'm need to pick up some extra shifts, or I hate where I am. I see that a lot. People,
Yeah.
and that's not the case for me, but I do know that it's the case for a lot of people in retail, especially chain retail, because their schedule is not flexible at all. They can't get off. They can't leave the store if there's an emergency. They're stuck. And
Hmm.
that's never a good feeling in any job, but you definitely don't want to feel stuck with a terrible schedule. And there's a pharmacist that I'm working with right now that's in Michigan, and she works at one of the chains. And about 2 months ago, she just got moved to another store, and just boom, one day her, I guess it's her district manager, I don't know the titles, but came in and was like, oh, we're moving you to this store. So now she
Oh
has
my
like a
goodness.
45-minute to an hour commute each way, which she has not been having. And the swap off, I don't know what everybody calls it in chain, but their other, her counterpart pharmacist, is super not flexible as far as changing days with her if her kids have different activities and this and that. So she's pretty miserable. So she's
Oh.
trying to build this up so that she can replace, the chain retail. And her husband is working alongside her to do that too,
Oh,
because
that's
he's
so
also in
sweet.
chain retail, but he kind of likes his setting. So he's okay. So he's trying to help her build hers up so she can step away from the chain, because she's just not happy, because she basically doesn't have any flexibility, and she works like a lot of like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m.
Oh,
closings. So it's pretty bad, but those are the people that we love to help the most, because nobody ever wants to feel stuck. Um, but yeah, they can totally, start making some extra money pretty quickly, and continue to just learn the whole process, learn all about all of it, um, as they are able to earn the money. But they can go ahead and get money coming in without having to put out thousands of dollars to get started, which is the
yeah.
case for any, if it's a brick and mortar, you're going to spend a lot of
Oh
money.
gosh.
If it's a consulting practice, you're going to probably spend several thousand. And then on the once you even get started, the marketing piece of it continues to be super expensive. But I think people just are not always open, like I said, to different sources of income.
Hmm.
But they also think that they automatically hear start a wellness business. Oh, well, I don't have money to get started.
Yes, yeah.
So, it's a really good option to get started with not a whole lot of money invested and to be, and to go ahead and get money coming in um, pretty quickly rather than waiting to be profitable for years sometimes, which is the case with consulting practices and other things
Hmm.
like that. So,
So,
yeah.
who would you say, I'm sure there's not a whole lot, but who would you say is not a good fit for this?
Um, Probably not. Yeah, not very many people would not be good for it. If you're like almost not active at all on social media, um, which they can still do it, but it takes longer to build up a
Hmm.
more of a social media presence because most of our system, that's how we start people off, um, is on social media because that generally gets us the quickest return, if that makes sense, and
Yeah.
gets us out there faster in front of more people faster so that we sort of hit the ground running. There are people, one of my good friends, matter of fact, my friend that told me about this whole thing did not build her business on social media. She just was a really good connector, if you will. Like she had tons of connections and prefers just picking up the phone. So that's totally fine too. But sometimes that happens a little bit slower. But
Hmm.
so if somebody is just like not on social media in any platform or on any platform at all, it may be a little slower, but they could still do it. People that aren't self motivated, probably not.
Yeah.
But I feel like if they're looking for another source of income or looking to replace their income, there's some motivation there, right? So and somebody that's locked into not looking towards anything but a W two.
Yeah.
So if pretty much anybody that's open to a different source of income, that's they're going to get a 1099 at the end of the year instead of a W two. Anybody that can block off a few minutes of time every day and is willing to put in the work, um, to learn, absolutely, they can do it. We'd love to lock arms with them and help get started. And the thing about it is, for $30, if you did it, you made a few $100s, and then you decided, I don't really know if I want to keep doing this, or something changes and you get some phenomenal, W-2 job and you don't want to do it or don't have time to do it. I mean, you're not out anything still, and
Yeah.
that's what one of my friends is like, if you come in, you make a few $100s and you decide you don't really love it, okay. But you still, now you have really good supplements for yourself, right? That you can
Yeah.
have access to for a really good price. And you haven't lost anything. You made a few $100, no harm, no foul.
Hmm.
So,
So, what does your life look like now compared to where you were before you started?
um, so much more aware of the whole nutrition piece of it, so much more aware of everything that I eat or drink, or take supplement wise. A lot more aware, which I already kind of knew, that there's a lot of not high quality supplements out there that people are wasting money on. One of the biggest things I think for me is just learning about a lot of things like how powerful medicinal mushrooms are, how powerful, just all these supplements can be, and that, there's not sort of one big blanket, oh, well, everybody needs this multivitamin. We probably all need a multivitamin and mineral supplement, but there's still gaps, there's still other gaps that we need to fill in. And so I think the biggest piece has been just from an education standpoint, because I didn't have that in pharmacy school, and in retail, we have a little bit of supplements exchange, I'll say, but everything is so pharmaceutical based, right? And that's been
Hmm.
the biggest shift, which I feel like in the last few years, if we've learned anything, we've all learned, pharmacists and otherwise, that we really need to get in the best shape we can be in with the best immune system we can have to fight off whatever comes our way.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to do that is nutrition and supplements to, to support our body so that it can do what it was designed to do, which is heal itself. And we fill it so full of preservatives and, you know, all these things. And we sort of handicap it, and then it can't do what it was designed to do. And so I think that has been the biggest shift and the biggest, I don't know, probably my favorite piece of the whole thing is just learning all about that, because I think as pharmacists, we're always wanting to learn something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to do a deeper dive into the nutrition and the supplements and just all things longevity and healthier living. That's, I hate to say that's been a big shift, but it's been a big shift for me. So now I'm super aware of, you know, how much water I'm drinking every day. Am I taking my supplements? Am I getting enough protein? Am I doing all these things? And I think too, all the things that go along with it, like just learning how many things um, insulin resistance is the beginning of, because most everybody walking around is insulin resistant, right? To a degree. And if
Mm.
that starts, then that leads to a whole other snowball of all these other
Yeah.
things. And just learning ways that we can sort of halt that or stop it or even reverse it at the insulin resistance piece before they start needing me for insulin. It's just been super eye opening and rewarding at the same time to learn all of these different pieces of what we can do to prevent all these things. Um, and I think it's just been, and it will be an ongoing learning process from here on out, because they're constantly discovering, new things
Mhm.
health wise. But I think everybody, especially now, like I said, is super aware of the need to be healthier. I don't want to say on our own, but without the need for, medication, because that doesn't fix it. If your body can fix itself, you won't need all the rest. And I think that's what we need to do, is give it what it needs to let it do its job, instead of handicapping it with, you know, what we typically put into it.
And do you feel professionally like you're more valued or you feel more purposeful in life with what you're doing now?
Definitely so, because I feel like it can be so much more impactful, um, to be on the front end of things and be proactive versus reactive. But I feel like the whole medical system is reactive and not proactive, in general. And so that too has kind of been a bigger shift, I think, and will be for most of us that are in the healthcare space or the sick care space. It's certainly not health. In the For all of us in the sick care space in retail, and hospital too, for that matter, it's a shift, to be on the proactive side. And okay, well, what can we do now so that whatever's going on doesn't progress and turn into XYZ disease? I think it's much easier, and literally the old, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is so true, but it's more than that. It's worth more than a pound. I mean, it's
Mhm.
really, if we can start and get ahead of things, it's much easier to fix it, or much easier to prevent it than to try to come back and fix it.
Yeah.
Um, but by the time somebody, say, is diagnosed with diabetes, they've had insulin resistance for years, and all the things that go along with it. And so, if we can catch it before it progresses to that point, it's so much better and easier to do something about it. But the education piece for us in healthcare, sick care, whichever, and people in general, like
Hmm.
the everyday consumer has no idea what could be done to keep them from, following in, if generations of their family has heart disease, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to settle for that. You can do all these things to keep you, genetically, of course, some things are not fixable, but so much of it is. And a lot of times I feel like we just accept it. Oh, well, my grandmother was diabetic, my mother was diabetic. I'm gonna be diabetic. And it's kind of like you just wait for it instead of trying to do anything about it. So it's definitely a mind shift for me. I think it's been a mind shift for a lot of people that are in the wellness space, especially if they came from the healthcare space before or are still in the healthcare space part of the time, like me. But I think I feel like it's on us to educate everybody else out there on what we're learning, and what we can do about it.
And so, in your closing remarks, what advice would you give pharmacist moms who are listening, who are inspired by your story? Like, what would you have them reach out to you? What would you tell them? What are your closing remarks? Anything that you want to do to promote, you know, some learning from you, or floor is yours.
I'm totally happy to answer questions for anybody that has questions. But just to sort of dial it back a little bit, don't wait for anybody to give you permission to start something else, whether it's this, whether it's consulting, whether it's an art studio. I don't care. Don't wait on somebody to tell you it's okay to do that. Yes, you went to pharmacy school. Yes, you worked your tail off for your degree. Yes, it cost you a lot of money. But if you're not doing something that you love to do or that you feel like is impactful, or if you're miserable, if you're
Yeah.
stuck, if you feel stuck, don't wait on anybody. Nobody's going to come knock on your door and give you permission. They're not.
Yeah.
Because they're out there doing their thing. Do something different. It's okay to do something different. And I think sometimes we do feel like we worked really hard for this degree. We
Yep.
feel obligated to use it. And I totally get that. And I see people all the time like, oh, I'm not going to renew my pharmacy license this year. It's so freeing, blah, blah, blah. I'm hanging on to my pharmacy license.
Oh, heck
Even if I'm
yeah.
not using it, I'm not giving it up because I did work hard for it and all the things. But don't feel like you're boxed into that. There's other things you can do to use the knowledge that you have. Um, if anybody is interested in starting a wellness franchise, I'm totally happy to answer questions. They can find me on Facebook, or find me in this group. Um, and it can be done very simply, very easily, very affordably. Um, and it's a beautiful thing. And then you can help other people feel better. You can feel better. I know I feel better. Um, and then what else was your question? What do
Just
they?
any
Oh,
any closing
just
remarks you
yeah.
wanna.
Don't go out there unless you just think you have to have an MBA or have to have another degree. I have a BS. I finished in the dark ages. And I've still not, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I still was able to do the PGX thing. I still was able to do the wellness thing. Um, you don't have to have more letters. You don't have to have another degree. You don't have to go further in debt to start your own business. It doesn't have to be brick and mortar. It can look different. Um, and you can still tweak it and do what you want to do. If you want it to be a retail space, it can be. If you want it to totally be virtual, it can be that. It can be hybrid. It can be, there's lots of different options even within the wellness space that you can operate a little bit differently. If you already have your own store, you can totally operate a wellness space within that store. If you already have a store, if you already have your own store, bless your heart. um, I totally get it. But yeah, definitely reach out if you have questions, if you're curious at all. And I'm happy to answer questions. No pressure, no whatever. But I'd love to help anybody get started that is thinking that they may want to do it, because it's been phenomenal. It really has. And like I said, I feel like it's very impactful to help people early on rather than wait on disease states. And I think we all ultimately went to pharmacy school to be able to help people.
Yep.
And so it feels really good to be able to help them in a very meaningful way. You know, and people really dive in and they really appreciate all of that, and they really appreciate sharing the knowledge with them about helping them. Bottom line, everybody wants to feel better. And I have a friend that's a nutritionist, and she's like, how good can you really feel? And I think that's a valid question that nobody ever asks themselves. It's just like you start accepting things as you age, you start accepting joint stiffness, or you start accepting all that, that you don't sleep well, or you start accepting a belly that you could lose when you were 30, and that you can't lose when you're
Mm-hmm.
55 or whatever. And we accept all these things as okay, but we can also fix a lot of it if we, give our body what it needs. So, anyway, I would love to share more information, hop on a Zoom with anybody that has questions, or they can message me on Facebook, and see what happens.
Well, thank you so much for this interview today. I'm sure so many people listening are like you've been dropping lots of gold nuggets for them. And
Oh,
if you
thank you.
are listening live, well, not live because it's not live, but if you are listening and Dayle said something that resonated with you, drop your questions in the comments. I'm going to post the replay. For those of you who missed tonight's session, we are going weekly live. If you will want to be a guest, you can reach out. I would love to highlight you and what you're building in the pharmacy world. As I mentioned, we are trying to redesign the future of pharmacy so that we can start getting paid for our value and extending our professional value by starting our own businesses, services, whatever we need to do. But it's time that we start changing the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, have a great night.
You too.
Bye.